Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over the Synastry chart between Princess Diana and King Charles. And this is very fascinating to me because a lot of the energies in their relationship, especially with Camilla, show up in this chart between the two of them. So I'm going to get started. Now, between the two of them, there was really no love in this relationship. She had love for him, but he didn't really love her because his Nada asteroid trines her more, 1 degree. So there was a lack of love from him towards her. Now, why did he marry her? Well, Camilla was already married, and I think there was pressure on him to produce an heir. So the queen was involved, and she had to handpick the women that he was dating at the time. And Princess Diana came out front. She was the one that would become his wife to produce the heir. Now, his Saturn conjuncts her Mars, 5 degrees. And it's in her eighth house. Now, over time, the sexual intimacy between the two of them would break down because his Saturn is overlaying into her 8th house, which rules sex. Now, Saturn puts a chilling effect on this energy because Mars has to do with sexuality, and his Pluto is conjuncting her Lilith and the asteroid Nada, and Nada has to do with nothing, 0. Now, Pluto conjuncting these, it has to do with transformation and death. There was a strong sexual attraction in the beginning because her Spencer asteroid, PNA, is conjuncting his Lilith. But like I said before, Pluto represents transformation and death, and Lilith is conjuncting her Nada. So over time, the sexual intimacy broke down between the two of them. Now, her Mars conjuncts his Mad Hatter and Storm, 1 degree, and his Mad Hatter and Storm conjuncts her North Node. So in this relationship, there was a lot of drama and craziness between the two of them, and lots of storms for her because Mad Hatter has to do with drama. There's blow-ups. One person blames the other for the craziness that's going on, but it's really them that are creating the drama. And this happens on both sides as well. And storms, a lot of storms in this relationship for her. That was the main theme. But her Lucifer, Ishtar, Don Quixote, Camilla, and Vertex conjuncts his ascendant. Don Quixote has to do with unrequited love and the impossible dream. Now, all of this is conjuncting his ascendant. So all of these energies of these asteroids came into play, and I'm going to break it down for you. So Lucifer has to do with pride and arrogance, and she had a lot of pride for herself in this relationship, and she really she held on to the end, but over time she realized that she wasn't going to become queen. Well, she knew pretty much up front before they got married that she didn't think that she would become queen. And it's spelled out in this chart between the two of them as well as her natal, which I will get to. But she almost broke off the wedding 2 days before they got married, but she actually went through with it. But her instincts were correct in this situation. So she had pride, and there was arrogance involved from him towards her. And there was arguments between the two of them because of Camilla. And Camilla is conjuncting her vertex. This is a fateful sort of energy going on. Whatever conjuncts your vertex, these energies will come to you. And it's written right in her natal chart. So he brought Camilla into this relationship. It was a triangle, the three of them in this marriage together. And Don Quixote, like I said before, unrequited love due to Camilla. Now, his Uranus is conjuncting her Phaedra, 0 degrees. And Phaedra has to do with suicide, typically in the asteroid department. And Uranus has to do with, this planet has the energies of happening out of the blue, unreliable. So in this marriage, she tried to commit suicide a couple of times, half-heartedly, according to the press and what was going on, how it was revealed in books later in time. But she was suicidal. She also had an eating disorder. Now, her Sedna Valentine conjuncts his moon. And whatever conjuncts your moon in a synastry chart, you have to pay attention to, because those energies will affect you strongly. And Sedna has to do with betrayal. So she had an affair, as well as he did, but her Valentine is conjuncting his moon. And this is one of the best aspects to have, because Valentine is sacrificial love and devotion. So she did love him. But like I said, over time, she knew what was going on between him and Camilla, and she decided to focus her love and attention somewhere else. Now, his Sedna and child conjuncts her IC at 0 degrees. The IC sits at the very bottom of the chart, and it's on the border. It's on the cusp of the 4th house that rules the home and the family. So he was unfaithful as well. Sedna, like I said, has to do with betrayal. And his child conjuncts her IC. So in the beginning, there was this sort of innocence between the two of them. He brought his childlike energies to her, and she was quite enraptured by it, surprised actually. So, but over time, everything comes into play together. And the more time you spend with the other person, especially after you get married or you're living with them, all these energies come into play. Now, her child conjuncts his North Node, 1 degree. So the theme of this relationship for him was she was a child. She was like the child bride. I mean, she wasn't really a child, but when they met, I think when they got married, she was about 19. So she was still a teenager, and he was 13 years her senior, or 14 years. So the theme of this for him is she had this innocence and childlike quality. But like I said, she was very young and naive. So that's where this comes into play for him. Also, in her natal chart, Venus is squaring Uranus. Now, when you have Venus squaring Uranus in your natal chart, this means that the energies, it can be confusing. The person will tend to confuse love and friendship. One day they think they love the person, and the next day it's really it's sort of a friendship sort of thing going on. So at the beginning she confused this, and I think that she realized this over time. Because Uranus is the natural ruler of the 11th house, which rules friendships. So I think that she got love and friendship confused with the relationship that they had together. And they probably should have remained friends. But again, Camilla is there, and it was really a love triangle. Now, this can also indicate divorce, because due to wanting your personal freedom, she lost her personal freedom in this relationship quite strongly. And in her natal chart, Uranus is in the sign of Leo, and that's deposited by the sun in her 7th house. And the sun in her 7th house, which has to do with committed relationships. She married a man that had a lot of power. The sun rules government officials, men that have a lot of power. So she did marry Prince Charles, who later became king, and her sun is conjuncting Mercury, and Mercury has to do with communication and the press. So there was a lot of press and public communication way out in the open between her and the marriage that she had with him. Now, her Venus trines her Saturn, and this means that she's going to marry a man quite older than her, because Saturn rules Father Time. Now I'm going to go back to the asteroids, and in this aspect, it's very telling because his Merlin and Swindle conjuncts her Venus, 0 degrees. And Venus is the love planet. And Merlin has to do with a magical sort of quality and waving a magic wand and also manipulation. So that's what he brought into this relationship. And Swindle has to do with lying, cheating, and not being forthcoming. So in this relationship right here, it shows that he had a magical quality towards her and she was enraptured by him in the beginning, and but he ended up cheating on her. Now her moon and Hera conjuncts his point of fortune, 2 degrees. Whenever I see moon conjuncting the point of fortune in a Synastry chart, this to me is an automatic indication of marriage coming. But her Hera is conjuncting her moon as well. And Hera was married to Zeus, the prolific cheater. So she married him, but do you see how this is all starting to come together? He cheated on her, and there was a love triangle involved. Now, her Pholus conjuncts his Tristan in the 7th house, and her Tristan and Regina conjuncts her descendant natally. So what this means is that Tristan has to do with a love triangle. There's many variations of Tristan and Isolde in Greek mythology. But one of the variations of this is that the Duke of Brittany married Tristan and Isolde. And Isolde was the daughter of the Duke of Brittany. And he married Tristan and Isolde. And Tristan marries her for her name. He married Isolde for her name and her capabilities and her beauty. And that's exactly what happened here. But he did not love her. Tristan did not love Isolde. And Isolde finds out that Tristan had another woman. And then she found out, and that is pretty much how the story went there. So this totally coincides with this relationship because her Pholus is conjuncting his Tristan. So there's an explosion of cheating, and it's definitely going to happen. And her Tristan and Regina is conjuncting her descendant. So in her natal chart, Tristan's coming into her life, and Regina is the Latin word for queen. Now, the reason why she didn't become queen, I will explain. But Tristan and Regina holding hands on her descendant, so she's going to get involved with a man that's in love with another woman, and he's in love with the future queen, who happens to be Camilla, which is conjuncting Diana's vertex. Now, the reason why Diana did not become queen, which she actually prophesied herself, like I said before, is because that Regina asteroid is trining her TNO knot at 1 degree. So she's not going to become queen. Now, the interesting part of this as well is that the asteroid Queen is conjuncting her north node. So the whole, one of the themes of her life, besides the storms that she went through and the drama and the craziness, is that she was supposed to become queen. And I think that there's so many people out there that thinks that she is. But ultimately, she didn't become queen due to her Regina trining the asteroid knot. Interesting. Also, his Mercury in Spencer, her PNA, conjuncts her Neptune and Fink. So here we have her PNA conjuncting Fink and Neptune. So there's this fogginess in this relationship. They couldn't speak to each other without a very sort of fogginess and delusions involved in this relationship. There's a lot of lies told between the two of them, and Fink is there, so that's disloyalty. Disloyalty on both sides. Her union Lachesis, and Fama conjuncts his vertex. So that's what she brought into this relationship. She brought a union between the two of them and death. Lachesis is the death marker, and Fama is there as well. So conjuncting his vertex, right here, there's death that will become famous. There's a union, a famous union, and there's going to be death involved by her. And that's exactly what she brought into this relationship. Her storm conjuncts his sun, 2 degrees. Lots of storms in this relationship by her. Well, actually, in this situation, sun is a yang energy. It's masculine. So he was the one that created all the storms in this relationship, and it's also conjuncting her north node. So she lost her freedom. He told her when you get married to me, your freedom's going to be gone. So after that happened, lots of storms for her, and tears and crying as well, because his Melpomene conjuncts her midheaven 2 degrees, and Melpomene has to do with, it's like a Greek tragedy, a tragedy that came into this relationship, and the whole world saw this because it's right at the top of the chart, conjuncting the midheaven. So everyone saw this tragedy that unfolded between the two of them. His Fantasia and Lamia conjuncts her Juno. Again, pain, suffering, tears, crying, and fantasy. This whole relationship was just a fantasy, unrequited love. There was a beautiful fairy tale wedding, but you have Lamia there, and that also has to do with it can also mean having post-traumatic stress disorder on the extreme side. But that might coincide with her eating disorder, and that's conjuncting her Juno. And Juno has to do with marriage, so that is what he brought into this marriage. Very unfortunate. Now, her Swindle conjuncts his IC, and I've already talked about Swindle, and the IC sits at the bottom of the chart, so she cheated on Prince Charles, or King Charles as well. So that's all I have today. I hope you enjoyed this interpretation, and if you're interested in getting a Synastry chart, my email is in the description box. So hit the subscribe button to stay in the loop, and I will be back soon. Have a nice day.